A lot of you fill out your calendars for dates in the summer, like when you're going to go to the beach or the lake. But you better be filling in those dates now when people are going to commit, because we got a bunch of them on the docket.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson, that's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We'll talk about FanDuel in just a little bit. I want to thank you everydayers for being here every day. Thank you newbies for being here today, and thanks everybody for making us your first listen every single day. You guys are the best. We've gotten a lot of comments recently, people listening from Michigan and Montana and overseas.
Really?
Yeah.
Overseas.
Yeah.
Overseas.
It'd be cool to have a few people in Alabama do it. Nobody ever says anything. But Jimmy, Cincere Johnson laid out his date for when he's going to commit. For those who don't know, he's one of the top players in the state of Ohio. It's basically Alabama and Ohio State in a battle here. He will be visiting Alabama this weekend, correct?
Yeah, and that's right.
If, Alabama feels like they can knock this out of the park, maybe they can secure his commitment on his given date, which I think is June 19th.
It's right after his Ohio State visit, which is a little concerning in the same way that Xavier Crowell's announcement is right after his Alabama visit. That's good news for us. So it works the other way with Cincere Johnson. He's one of the many visitors this weekend. As a matter of fact, Alabama will have more visitors on this, quote, opening weekend of official visit season than they will on any other weekend. At least that's the way it's scheduled right now. These schedules can change. But as of right now, this will be Alabama's busiest weekend with 15 official visitors right now scheduled and one unofficial visitor in Jet Thomala, who's going to be a really big deal coming in this weekend, even though he's on an unofficial. But Cincere is making his official visit. This is the way that Alabama's got to do this. They have a good chance at Cincere, but they have to, as Luke put it, hit it out of the park. They have to, because you're probably working from behind here just a little bit. They have to convince Cincere Johnson not to sign with his childhood favorite. Now, Alabama has done good work with Ohio kids very recently. Justin Hill a year ago was basically in the same exact spot Cincere Johnson's in, and Alabama got Justin Hill to eschew his in-state powerhouse and travel to Alabama. And it's not going to be a coincidence when Cincere comes this weekend and his host is Justin Hill, because that's the path we want him to follow, right? So, but I would say that beating Ohio State is going to be difficult here, and it is going to come down to the official visit to Alabama. Will it be enough to convince Cincere Johnson to leave Ohio and leave his Ohio State team behind? If we're doing things like betting today, I'm going to bet on Ohio State here in this particular case. But I do think Alabama has a real shot here. And who knows, I may have said the exact same thing 1 year ago with Justin Hill, although I think I was a little more optimistic on Hill because Hill's mom liked Alabama so much. But Cincere Johnson, strong maybe. Alabama's got a good opportunity here, and it starts this weekend.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to give Ohio State the edge for this edge rusher. I mean, that's kind of what they haven't listed as an edge and a linebacker, so I thought I would play on words there. It didn't go as well as I thought.
He's really more of an inside guy too.
Yeah, I know, but I just saw edge, and I thought that was kind of a cute play on words. Look, don't try and step on my.
I know it's terrible. It ruins the joke. It's a joke, and someone ruins the joke. I ruin my own jokes usually.
But there are a lot of other guys coming up with their decision dates. Now, we've talked about Sedarian Morgan. He's going to be announcing July 2nd.
Fireworks will go off early.
That's pretty good. I kind of like where you're going with that. So Brandon Arrington will be committing. Yep. Is he July 4th or July 5th? It's one of those two.
Right. I feel like I could be totally wrong. This is a read of the situation. It feels like we're fading there. Feels like we're fading.
I agree.
I think he's going to stay on the West Coast. That's a gut feel there. I just feel like we're fading. Now, that said, I'm not too torn up over it in the sense that you've already got Zion Gibson and Jordan Evans. That's a home run at cornerback for Alabama. And you could get CD Morgan and one other of the many, heck, there's wide receivers coming in this weekend. I mean, I'm not worried about cornerback and wide receiver recruiting for Alabama this year. It's going to be a home run for Alabama, regardless of what Brandon Arrington does. It just feels like we had some good momentum there and it's sort of faded. And, you know, I get that it's a long, long ways from California to come to school at Alabama. I know others have, but that's not for everybody.
Yeah. I'm not torn up about that. I like him. I love the idea of. I mean, look, if he wants to commit, let's take him.
He's a deserved 5-star. I mean, he's well deserved 5th star there. He's a badass, really. But he's from California. It's always going to be tough.
I just don't see it happening.
I know he's going to Washington, I think, this weekend.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter that, you know, Washington was really fired up. They've got him coming on campus, and they should be. Washington's still recruiting really well. I mean, they got a good staff.
They have a good. That's exactly right. That's exactly. They have a good staff, and you know they got a young quarterback that not many people in the South or know about, or what, Damon Williams. They think he's going to be great, and that can be a Pied Piper of sorts when you have a good young quarterback that's going to be there. That's sort of one of these guys that engenders a lot of excitement. So I do think Washington's sort of got it going on a little bit. Losing DeBoer was a huge blow to them. And they lost basically that entire team and staff after making it to the national championship game. But I think they made a smart, good hire in Jed Fish, and he built a good staff. And Washington will be good again soon.
It should be noted, speaking of West Coast prospects, that Richard Wesley, who very famously jumped in a pool with Dan Lanning of Oregon when he committed in one of the weirder commitment videos you'll ever see. And that only happened like 3 weeks ago.
Cringy.
I mean, it may have been 2 weeks, it may have been 4 weeks, but in that neighborhood, he just decommitted.
Yep.
Which tells me that he just got a really kick butt offer from somebody.
It was the most cringy recruiting video since Brian Kelly danced up all on Danny Lewis, who quickly committed to Alabama.
Having, you know, somebody ought to tell Brian Kelly that having Brian Kelly twerk on you as a male young football prospect is not going to entice most of them to come on your team. And if it does, you probably don't want him on your team.
It's a turnoff, like they used to do on those Playboy Playmate centerfolds back in the day, and they would have their turn-ons and turn-offs.
Yeah.
Turn off. Brian Kelly twerking on me.
Anybody over 65 twerking, any gender, any race, any religion, doesn't matter.
Regardless of the talent of the twerker.
So we talked about a few of the other dates. Is there anybody else you can think of that's going to be committing that has set a date relatively soon?
Not off the top of my head. Well, Kroll, we hadn't talked. Well, I mean, I guess we mentioned him
that's
earlier.
true.
Xavier Kroll, EJ Kroll. He's going to commit in June after his Alabama official visit. Let me tell you, I mean, I don't think they'll be the next two by any means, and since I saddened everyone by saying I think Cincere will ultimately choose Ohio State, let's brighten everybody's day by saying I still think EJ Kroll and CD Morgan will choose Alabama. And you're talking about 2 5-star talents there. I don't care where they're from. As a matter of fact, them being from Alabama kind of makes me feel pretty good right now because of all the talk about in-state recruiting. I think Alabama could sweep the top 3 prospects in the state with Kroll, CD Morgan, and Tank Jones. Could all conceivably choose Alabama. Still feel good about those guys. And I still feel like Alabama's got worst case scenario, a top 5 class building here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. One thing I want to throw in here, just for the heck of it, because it's cool. Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith are on the cover of the EA Sports Game, college football game, which is just awesome. And I just love it. And I think, look, there have been some people going, should Ryan Williams be on there? Not more of a national thing, not us. I mean, we think Ryan Williams should be on the cover of Time magazine, so we don't care. But there are some people that are like, Ryan Williams didn't do quite as much the second half of the season. Jeremiah Smith, his team leads his team to a national championship. All that's true. I also would say that Ryan Williams, it was no fault of his own. He didn't have anybody that was getting him the ball. And especially in that Michigan game. I also thought Ryan Williams had an unbelievable quote, and I don't have it in front of me, so it's not going to be verbatim, but he essentially said, hey, ever since I've been alive, Alabama has won 10 games or more. The first year I come here, we only win 9. And then we play Michigan, and we lose to Michigan, who didn't have anybody on that team, essentially. He said, you don't think I'm motivated? I'm so motivated to get us back, I don't know what to do. And, all I can do – I was going to say that fired me up to play, but it doesn't because my back hurts from sleeping on a bed last night at my parents' house because that's where I stay on Tuesday nights because I do a show here. So it doesn't fire me up to run through a brick wall, but I think it'll fire up a lot of the players to run through a brick wall. I think – and based on the workout videos we've seen of Ryan Williams, I think he's going to have as good a year as any wide receiver in the country next year. I really believe that.
Yeah, I'm glad you're not playing in the game. It reminds me of a Bear Bryant quote in the lead up to one of his last national championship Sugar Bowls when all the talk was about Bear Bryant versus the young upstart coach Lou Holtz at Arkansas. And Coach Bryant said, there's been too much talk about myself and Lou Holtz about this game. It's going to be settled by the players. He says, I'm not playing in the game, and I hope Lou does.
The words young and Lou Holtz have never been mentioned in the same sentence before.
He was the coach when Alabama played Arkansas in 1979. Well, the 79 season, so it would have been January 1st, 1980. Lou Holtz would have been fairly young 45 years ago. Fairly young.
Yes.
He wasn't 18.
He was not 18, there's no doubt. Well, listen, when we come back, we're going to talk about the visitors coming in this weekend, and it's a long list of visitors, and it's a good list of visitors, and I suspect we're going to get some commitments from it. But I do want to tell you about FanDuel because you know how much we love FanDuel over here at Locked On Bama. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and you better hurry up because both of them are 3-1 right now. And every night delivers highlight-worthy performances. Halliburton was awesome last night. Major momentum shifts and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. That's what's great. You can play while the game's going on. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you want to say, hey, I think Tyrese Halliburton's going to have a triple-double, if you had done that last night, could have won some major cash. Look, and there's also a $200 in bonus bets to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet wins. That's just incredible. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. It's that simple. There's no
just giving it away.
There's no nothing. All you got to do, go to FanDuel, sign up, $5 bet, you win, you get 200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Jimmy, visitor list this weekend.
Very excited.
Very nice. I was at Orange Beach this weekend with a friend of mine who does a great Borat impression, and all we did was Borat stuff all weekend. It was great.
Really?
Like not actual Borat.
That's
stuff.
Like amusing after one beer and outright hilarious after 8. Then you can't stop, and then you won't stop laughing. So
the good news is we leaned on the 8 side versus the 1 side.
I'm probably in the minority. I like his Bruno character even more than Borat's fine and funny. Bruno gets me just laughing. I just cannot stop.
Well, let me tell you, for those who don't, if you've never seen Borat, I encourage you to do so.
Yeah, it's funny.
For the cringe-worthiness. But
it's funny.
There is one scene in there. Now that I live in Mountain Brook, it even hits more home when Borat went to a house in Mountain Brook, and the people that were in the movie had no idea they were actually being pranked on. And when Borat told that one woman, he goes, "You would be so beautiful in my country. You not so much." It makes me hurt for that woman.
Yeah. It's pretty brutal. Yep. And movies like that, I'm so embarrassed to admit that I watch them, and even more embarrassed to admit I basically bust ribs laughing. It's so funny.
Well, Borat is not visiting this weekend, although he has visited the University of Alabama.
He would be a one-star.
Bruno. And so, Jimmy, who is visiting, and why should we be excited, and who could commit? We've already talked about Cincere Johnson, by the way, so blow past that.
Well, let's talk about a few guys. I personally, this is just how I guess is going to happen. This is a guess, and I hope I'm wrong. I would love to get a couple commitments Sunday just to start building some momentum. I don't know that of this group coming in that there's going to be Sunday and Monday commitments, but I do think ultimately Alabama will land a few guys that are coming this weekend. I just think they're going to go on other visits and then choose Alabama later in the summer. That's what I think is going to happen with the few guys. I'd point to Kevin Ford as a guy that could choose Alabama, the pass rusher from Duncanville, Texas, that played with Kalen Russell. Tristan Davis, a defensive lineman from Missouri, who's, he's one of these guys right now that's primarily ranked 3 stars, but then you look at who he's visiting and who wants him, and you're like, this guy's not going to end the process of 3-star, because a lot of huge power programs really want Tristan Davis, including Alabama. I think he's a guy that could end up with. An interesting lineman from Mississippi, Bryson Cooley, coming this weekend. Are they going to push for him? He's an Alabama or LSU or Ole Miss or Mississippi State guy. Looks like he wants to stay regional. He's a tackle type prospect. Deacon Schmidt, #1 lineman in Colorado. He'll be there this weekend. Alabama's got a better chance at him than you might think. He might stay at home and play for the hot program in his own state, Colorado, which normally isn't as hot in the recruiting circles as they are now. Oftentimes the #1 player in Colorado in recent years has left Colorado. Deacon Schmidt may not. He may stay home. He also likes, I believe, Tennessee. Jet Thomala is here this weekend. To me, I'm more interested in his visit than any other. He's on an unofficial, and understand for those that may not know the difference, official means Alabama can pay for everything. They roll out the red carpet and pay for the red carpet. You can bring family members. Everybody's eating for free. But unofficial is on your own dime. Well, Jet Thomala is coming down, committed to Iowa State, the quarterback from Nebraska. And he is going to see how serious he is about Alabama and how serious Alabama is about him. He's never been there. And let me tell you, I'll admit, I've never seen Iowa State's facilities. I never have. So I'm speaking out of ignorance as usual here. But I can't help but think that when Jet Thomala walks in the football building at Alabama, he's going to feel like I felt when I'm in that building, which is that I'm at Alabama football Disney World. It's amazing. It's jaw-dropping. It's the happiest place on earth. I think he's going to be blown away by all Alabama has to show him and all Alabama has to tell him. But ultimately, I think his decision is going to come down to this. Little fish, big pond, big fish, little pond. I mean, in the sense that if he goes to Iowa State, he's going to feel like I will be the starting quarterback after the current starter cycles out. Rocco Beck, who's an NFL prospect, who may not be around too much longer at Iowa State because the NFL likes him. I'll be the starter after Rocco Beck is how it felt. At Alabama, he's going to either feel like or be told, especially like by people like Iowa State, that, hey, you're not just behind Ty Simpson there. You're behind a freshman that hadn't even played yet there. And you're going to have to be really patient to possibly start in your 5th year. That's what he's going to hear from other schools and people that don't want him to sign with Alabama. And it may be what he thinks on his own. And I think that's the conundrum with recruiting Jet Thomala is he willing to be patient enough? Because, and who knows? Hey, look, we recruiting rankings are not scientific. As we sit here today, is everyone willing to bet their life that Kalen Russell is going to beat out Jet Thomala? I wouldn't bet my life on it. Now, I'd bet money on it. But I wouldn't, you never know how it's going to work out. Jet Thomala could show up and start as a freshman. I mean, gosh, anything can happen. But that's what it's going to be about where you are in the pecking order at Iowa State versus where you are at Alabama.
Yeah, and by the way, for those who don't know much about him, and Jeff Thomala, he is one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country, so he is a 4-star. He is, if you're a top 10 quarterback in the country, you're very highly regarded. But it's so funny how in recruiting circles where you say, he's number 10 quarterback in the country, and they're like, well, we couldn't get the number 3 guy? Yeah. I mean, number 10 out of X amount of high schools. It's unbelievable. But
it's a perfect example of how we say all the time here. Alabama fans aren't spoiled; they're ruined.
We are completely ruined.
We're ruined.
But
because he is going to be, I think he will end a universal top 10 quarterback. He's one of only 8 that has the elite 11 invitation. Only 8 have it, and he's got one.
Let me tell you guys, this is seriously. Don't even look at the football tape. You can, and that will impress you. What got me was his basketball tape. Yeah. The kid is a freaky athlete. Now, is he freaky like Jeremiah Smith? No, but he's freaky based on what I thought he was going to be.
Yeah. When I watched the tape, it kind of blew me. I watched his football tape. My first questions were about how athletic is this kid? And it's not about can he run the option? Can he out sprint DBs? It's not that. It's just you have to have a certain amount of athleticism in the pocket to be successful in this league. And I watched his football tape and almost quite like, is he athletic enough? Then you watch the basketball highlights and it answers that emphatically. For whatever reason, I think football and footwork is something that all these kids have to be developed. He's going to get better and better and better and better. I like him more and more. And Luke's right. The basketball tape was part of the reason I got really fired up about him, because the great athletes, they tend to get better and better and handle the transition from high school to college better. And again, to reiterate, he's going to hear, you go to Alabama, you'll be behind Keelan Russell for 4 years. We don't know that. We don't know that. But
we don't know.
Regardless, we don't know that.
Quit saying that.
These things? How do people know these things?
You don't know it. We know it. God, it's kind of a shame this is only about a 30-minute podcast these days, because I got so much I want to say about the new possible playoff format. We can do that maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I got fired up.
We do want to get back into your roster countdown.
Boy,
and where are you, Jimmy?
Part of the fun of this is we're going to do 65 and 64 today. And part of the fun is, we're at 65 and 64. That means it's only 64 days until Alabama's first football practice. The offseason will officially end in 64 days as Alabama hits the practice field. So 65 and 64, pretty interchangeable. I can't really separate them. I did, but really, 65 is Rock Montgomery. 64 is William Sanders. To me, I don't really differentiate them very much. Rock's a year older. He's played. Sanders is a guy that's been a little buzzworthy at Alabama. There are believers in Sanders that watch him on the practice field and think this is a future starter at Alabama. Rock Montgomery still promising himself. Both of these guys are in that hazy area of, will they be a 2, which means second team, so they play quite a bit under DeBoer, or will they be a 3, third team, and we don't see much of them. I think they're both in contention for a second team spot, could end up a 3, both interior guys. One thing, some of these guys have some positional versatility. I think Sanders and Rock are sort of their centers or their guards. I don't think you'll see either one of them ever at tackle at Alabama, although weirdly, this is how high they are in Sanders, Luke, as an athlete, and how athletic he is. That's the first thing people say about Sanders is, boy, he's athletic. When Alabama lost all those tight ends, and then all of a sudden they only had one scholarship tight end to get through practice, they moved Sanders out there. Not like permanently, but like, we got to get through practice with another tight end. Will you play tight end? And hey, give the kid credit. He took some time away from his own development at guard and center to play tight end, a couple practices at the end, even on a day. And from what we understand, the scrimmage the week before, Sanders is out there playing tight end with the 1s and 2s. So this is an athletic kid that I think is really promising. Rock Montgomery, more power, done a great job reshaping his body. Reminds me of Tim Keenan in that sense. And let's remember about Tim Keenan. Didn't hear a peep out of him for like first 2-3 years or so. Didn't hear a peep about Tim Keenan. Worked on his body. Overnight, you want to say year 3, year 4, Tim Keenan became literally one of the better defensive tackles in the country. I think Rock Montgomery could sort of follow that path. And once he gets to a year 4, he might be tough, really tough to keep out of the lineup.
I like how you put a positive spin on Sanders moving to tight end for a bit, because I think if you're not at least moderately plugged in, you may look at that and go, this Sanders kid, they're already trying to move him around. And you got to dig a little deeper in the story and go, oh, he was being rather selfless. Yeah. Oh, this is actually not terrible, because I'm going to tell you something. I think it's good that a tackle knows a little bit more about what a tight end should do, because I think that builds cohesion. I think it builds synergy. I think it's good for all the offensive linemen to have a feel for what the other ones do. I mean, you think about somebody like Barrett Jones. Now, he's an outlier because he was incredible, but he played all the offensive line positions and he did it well. And when he was there, the offensive line was awesome. And I don't think that's any coincidence, in the sense that he knew where everybody was supposed to be, because he had played those positions. So if somebody was saying something to him, it wasn't like they were speaking another language, because the tackle jobs are much different than the guard jobs, which are different than the center jobs.
No, that's so right. And again, Sanders wasn't, you make a good point distinguishing that, because sometimes you move a kid because you're like, well, he's never going to play this position. Why don't we try him somewhere else? That is absolutely not the situation here. It was like literally, okay, which of the offensive linemen are athletic enough to help us at tight end for a few practices? And then you go to Willer, like, you're not playing tight end this fall. This is not a position move. We just got to get through these last couple of practices, and you're our best fit because you're our best athlete that can do this. They wouldn't have done it if he was a starter. And Will and Rock, they're not starters. They're not ones. They're not going to be ones this fall. I think they're really competing for spots with the second group. But no, Will Sanders has a lot of fans in and around the program that are big believers in him. And again, I think Rock Montgomery could be on a Tim Keenan type track where he works on his body, and then once he's ready, he'll be tough to keep off the field, just like it was with Keenan.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. I can't wait to get back here tomorrow, though, because I do want to talk about some of this stuff that Greg Sankey and Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart and even Kalen DeBoer to some degree have been talking about. I will say one other thing. It's funny. Athlon always does this same thing every year. Anonymous quotes from coaches about other teams. This year, I mean, as we read these last night on the Sports Split show I do on Tuesdays, I was like, why are these quotes even anonymous? Nobody's saying anything.
Yeah, they're bland.
This is anonymous coach speak.
I only know the Alabama one because I haven't got the Athlons yet, so I only know the quote about Alabama. It was just bland. It wasn't insightful.
I don't know if Jimmy's frozen or okay. Are you frozen, Jimmy? Say it again.
I was saying Alabama. The comment about Alabama was bland. It wasn't insightful. It didn't tell me anything. I would prefer. Heck, I prefer reading criticism really, because
Jimmy, I said the same thing. I was like, you know what they said about Alabama was like, well, they've got some question marks at quarterback, but they certainly still have the talent, and there'll always be a factor. Yeah, okay, well, AI could have said that.
Yeah, you don't have to be a coach to say that. Heck, I'd rather read something negative like saying everybody around the league has some real doubts about that scheme they're running on defense. That would be fascinating. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying something like that would be a lot more interesting to read than, well, they do have question marks, but it's Alabama, so they're going to be a factor. I mean, they had to go to an anonymous coach for that. They could have gone to an anonymous casual fan at a Walmart for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's silly. Yeah. I mean, anybody could have told you that. All right. So anyway, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.